Yeah, it's nice. It's almost Christmas time is approaching, so it's these last days to get everything ready.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
Hello,
Hey,
here
Redona.
we are. Redona, good
how are
morning to
you?
you.
Good evening to you.
Yeah, well, talk about the time zones. We are in a very international setup here. You are based in the US and Chris in Spain, me in the Netherlands, and for sure the audience is also spread around the world. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night to everyone here watching us live.
Yes, thank you, Redona, for joining us today. So today's Innovation Talks, for those of you that haven't joined us before, Claudia and I host these every couple weeks, and they're usually on design, business, and technology, any topic of those. About design and business growth and how designers create value to help businesses succeed. So we have Redona here, which she'll introduce herself briefly now, but she's going to tell us a bit about her experience, what has been her path to this point. Do you want to introduce yourself, Claudia, and we'll go around the circle? This is a roundtable conversation, after all.
Yeah, this is the 17th time that we meet here. And it all started on Clubhouse, and then we tried LinkedIn, and now we are back on Instagram Live. And usually it's the two of us, but sometimes we have this very nice pleasure to have guest speakers on board. What we always have in common is we share a passion in design, in business, technology, creativity, innovation. So that's why Redona is also here today. Shortly about myself, I'm Claudia from Austria, based in the Netherlands, and I've always...
I think I lost her audio there.
Yeah, me too.
Okay,
Can
so
hear.
you're back? No, we still can't hear you.
Sorry, yeah, that was just a note. Okay, I will recap. So I'm Austrian, living in the Netherlands, and I've always been very passionate about the intersection between business and creativity. And that led me to, on the one hand, have my own business where I help designers in their commercial activities. And I'm also teaching design thinking to university students here. And I think that's already linked to Redona, her passion about design. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me here. I'm really honored. And my name is Redona, for who doesn't know me. I define myself a growth designer, and I basically optimize websites, landing pages, and digital products. So I'm originally from Albania, but I grew up in Italy. I have worked in different international markets like Dubai, Italy, and now in US. So I have seen different cultures, and now I'm trying to help those companies to grow their business through design. And of course, I'm trying to help also new designers to understand how they could do the same thing.
That's amazing. Thank you for that intro, Redona. Well, to finish off, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Chris Luck. I am co-founder of Miro Innovation. That is not the Miro app. That's a big common misconception. We're a strategic design and innovation consultancy. We're based in Buenos Aires, so similar to you both. I've also moved around a bit. I'm living in Madrid, Spain now. And we also focus on helping our clients find innovative solutions, especially in changing times, so adapt to change. So I think we have a very interesting mix of experiences in this table. If you want to kick it off, Redona, back to you. You talk about, helping businesses grow through design. How do you do this? What's your approach to design for a business? What's the Redona?
Sure. So my way of designing for businesses is first thing first, understand what the business goal is. So you need to understand what the client is asking you to do or what they need actually. So you need to understand their business needs. And you decide with them what to prioritize. For example, what is most important for them, like now to grow or maybe, to follow or design. And after this, let's say first meeting, we go through research, so competitive analysis, and it depends from the company. You can also do some qualitative and quantitative research just to understand a little bit the situation. And then you design based on your assumptions or hypotheses. I prefer to call them hypotheses. So you design based on your hypothesis, and then you test your hypothesis with the clients and the users. And if everything works, then you ship the product. But this is, let's say a continuous work on growing the company. So you don't finish the work when the first, let's say, product is shipped. So you continually optimize the product until you don't reach the goal.
And Redona, you just mentioned it all starts with understanding the business goals. So I can imagine maybe a more junior designer gets an email with a request, dear so-and-so, we need a new website. And how do you, with all your experience, how do you go through to the goal behind the goal? So do you have some methodologies or insights you can share on how to get to the really important goals in business?
Sure. First thing first, when a client comes to you and asks you for a website, they don't need a website. They need something else, and you need to discover what is that something else that they need. So you have to, let's say, talk with the client like you are on the same page, that you understand their business. So you ask them, what is that their need? Like, they need a website, but for what reason? What is the reason that they want a website? Do they want to be seen by people? Do they want to sell their product by their website, for example? What is it they want? What is the final goal of, having a website? And then you discover the why they're actually asking you to build them a website. And then you go through the process, by asking them a lot of questions and trying always not to bring up the aesthetics in the beginning. So don't talk about colors, don't talk about shapes, because clients will not understand that. You need to talk about business. So what is the thing that will grow their business? What is the, let's say, element that you will implement in this digital product that will promote their product or that will sell their product? This is how you communicate with someone new, for example.
I like it that you say you don't establish yourself as executor of, aesthetics, making something beautiful, but you position yourself as the business partner who understands based on research. Chris, that's one of our favorite topics, of course, proper research and later on validation, that, you basically even know more than the client, and they say, wow, this is the designer I need to hire.
Yes, because I'm here to help you to grow your business, right? So I'm not here to execute. You hired me as an expert, right? So you want me to grow your business through design. And my way of growing your business through design is telling you what we should implement based on your request.
And I actually have a very interesting question. If, as a business, this is the business person on me coming out. If I'm hiring you to help me grow my business, how are you going to show me those results? Because you just mentioned not talk about aesthetics. So if you're talking, for example, to a CFO or a business person, they're like, well, how do I know if this is going to work? What do you tell them, or what do you use to help them, make their design, the impact of your designs tangible for them?
Sure. So depending on what they already have right now, maybe they have already a product, or maybe they need a new product. Yeah. For sure, if you don't have anything, you will grow because you will have more exposure. So people will start noticing you. And that is something different. But if you have a product that doesn't work, like a digital product that doesn't work right now, we can define some KPIs. And I can tell you that through maybe some testing, we can reach those goals. And this is how it's a working together instead of I will tell you that you will grow maybe your business I don't know, 1 million or whatever. So it's like a constant growing, because growth design, for example, is really based on testing and experimenting. So it depends of course on the audience and on the users that are using that product. So you have to test the product and see how it goes. And for sure, if we do the things in the right way, we will reach the goals that we defined.
That's and if yeah, I understand also these designs or these new solutions that you propose, they also take time, of course, to have an impact. So you mentioned this, going back to something you mentioned earlier. You mentioned how you know, you try not to have one-shot projects, but actually try to continue working with them and continue to grow. Is this something that you find you struggle with? Like with a client, they just want the website, have it online, and then they want to forget about you? Or do you find that it's easy to continue working more like on a going?
Yeah, it depends on the client. For example, there are some clients, I have an example when a client was really, let's say, convinced that videos will perform on their website. So we should put videos on the top of the header because videos perform better than images. And I was like, yes, that's true, but it depends how the video is, of course, made. Like, what is the value that the video will give to your customers? Like, is it something that represents you or represents the product? Because a website it's like a storytelling. You know, when you come into a website, I need to understand what is the website about without confusing me about 1,000 products that you have. So one thing at a time, and try to show me what is the value that I will gain from your product, right? And some people don't understand this because you have a lot of, you know, let's say articles that say, websites perform better with videos. And sometimes it's true and sometimes it's not true. So what I decide to do is, okay, let's do it like you want to do it and let's test it. And what I tell them is I will not, let's say, assure you that this will work, because my hypothesis is that we try maybe to change the video, but if you don't have budget, then we can test it and see how people behave, right? And we discovered that people were not even playing the video. So the video was there on the top of the website and they were not even press the play button. And so we decided to put it on the bottom and to maybe just write 2 lines of value proposition and try to understand if people wanted to scroll down and see the rest of the products. And actually, we gained more clients because of this switch. And this is how he started to trust me more and give me more, let's say, power on decision making. So you have to show people that what you are saying is true by testing the product, because design sometimes is only judged by aesthetics. And this is where we designers struggle a lot.
And you just mentioned, or you showcased us with this example, the importance of validation, of testing, of iterating. Yeah. So that would lead to a hypothesis saying that a good designer should have a mix between the creative thinking, the right brain, but also the left brain, the analytical thinking. What you said, you check the analytics of the website. Can you talk a little bit, how would you describe this ideal mix of analytical business thinking and creativity out of the box?
Sure. Well, it's long to describe because when I first started, for example, my design journey, I was basically a visual designer. So people were hiring me because of, you know, what I was designing, and it was basically only aesthetics. And for me, it was a problem because I was thinking about, so why am I designing this thing? So what is the purpose for me to design maybe that thing there instead of on the other side? And what makes my boss, for example, change me? Like, why is he asking me to change things? I want to understand. So I was curious. I want to understand more about why I'm doing this. And so I started to think about numbers. Like, the only thing that people understand is numbers, right? People that are not designers understand numbers. So I found a lot of articles that were talking about how to test your designs and how to measure your designs. So I started to use this type of tools like Google Analytics and Hotjar, for example, and a lot of other tools like behavioral analytics, especially. because I had no budget, to use for interviews, and the only ones that I could interview were my friends at the time, but my friends were not the users of that product, so it was very difficult for me to try to level up, my skills only as a visual designer, but becoming a, let's say, yes, user experience designer, but I define myself more a growth designer because I try to also understand the business needs and not only stopping on the visual design aspect of the product. But I think it's very important for you designers to not stop, only on the user interface design. I'm not saying that you should become an analytics expert or data expert, but just try to understand a little bit how that works so you can communicate better your design decisions.
I think that's very relevant, and from my experience, I've encountered the same thing with our teams, where usually your client is not a designer, like you just mentioned, and usually they from a totally different branch or an industry. They could be in healthcare and pharmaceuticals, and and I like what you said, use numbers, use white papers, use information that you can find online, but find something. And there's something that you mentioned a few minutes ago, which was gain their trust. And I think that's super important. I'd say the clients we've had the longest, or that personally called me on the phone and like, hey, Chris, I need help with this. They've come to that point where they have that trust, where the bias theory. We already helped them achieve a certain goal, a business challenge. Now they think you know everything, and they'll call you like, hey, Chris, I want to create a augmented reality app for my phone. And I think that's the crazy thing in 3 days. But I think that's super important, gaining their trust and using numbers, or trying to speak the language they speak. If you're trying to explain your design to maybe your grandmother, and she might be a designer, but let's imagine she's not a designer. You need to explain it in a way that's so simple that she'll be like, okay, this makes sense, or this investment, because at the end of the line, they're paying you for this service. Makes sense. So I think that stuck with me. I don't know, Claudia, how your experience has been with this, but I think that trust is like a very important keyword in client relationships.
Yeah, and that connects very well to Redona. I read on your Instagram that you said design is difficult, and I'm here to simplify it. And you just mentioned in the website with the video that it needs to very clearly communicate what is this product or service for. So can you tell us a little bit? Let's envision that you help to make a lot of people, clients and designers alike, aware about being more simple in their storytelling. What would that lead us to? What kind of future would you like to have created in a few years from now, with more consciousness about the value of design?
Yeah, this is a really interesting question, because I have always struggled to communicate my design decisions when I was, let's say, a junior designer, and I was frustrated because nobody was listening to me. Even though I had some experience, as a designer, I was doing my job as a professional, and I was not taken into consideration into the decision table, right? So this is why I started to also share my post here on Instagram, because I want to educate designers that maybe don't have a lot of experience in this field, but also clients, people that don't understand design, because sometimes design is seen, as I said before, something only visual. But design doesn't stop on visual design, like only visual stuff. Design is more than visual. You have, as we said before, a research part. We actually, as designers, try to understand and prioritize what the clients or the business needs are, and we try to understand what we have to build first and what we have to maybe stop and say, okay, maybe this is not important right now. So sometimes trying to focus on one thing is what led me to simplifying concepts and simplifying also my way of communicating with people. So that's why my journey started as, okay, I have to simplify something to someone that doesn't understand design, that doesn't speak design. So that's why I was taking one topic at a time, because I see a lot of designers putting a lot of things in one post and people get confused because they don't know, what they're talking about. Me as a designer, I know because I went through that journey. I know what they're talking about. And maybe sometimes they use jargon language, so language that not everybody understands. So you have to, stop a little bit and think about, okay, with whom am I talking? Who is, my target audience? Are these designers? Are these, people that want to understand more about design? And you try to simplify those messages for those people. So I use really elementary language, and I try to explain design like a game, okay, like you do with children. So you show some images and you tell them in short, what you want to communicate. I know it's difficult to understand right now, but it takes some time to, elaborate those let's say posts, because it's not simple to simplify messages.
Yeah, I think we all saw that from Apple, that it's so simple, but there is so much thinking in it. That's so clear.
Yeah. There's something that you just made me think about is, as designers, we design for, especially in our initial stages, that we design for our portfolio. You are building your case study, and I'm sure there's a lot of designers listening to us right now. If there's a designer that is interested in this direction, because like you mentioned, you could be a UI designer and just focus on visuals with the proper behind that. But if there's someone that was interested in a similar path to the one that, going to growth design, what would you recommend they do? How would you recommend they build their portfolio? Or how would you recommend they focus it? Should they make it visual or should they make it analytical? What would...
Both are important because you sell yourself as a designer. So of course you have to show your skills as a designer. But also you need to present those kind of design decisions in an analytical way. So also your, let's say, peers or your boss or wherever you are, showing your portfolio, those people can understand what you are showing them. And especially what I see wrong about portfolios is that they are really long, like really long case studies that I wouldn't, stop and read everything, because if I'm a recruiter, I don't have the time to go through each of those case studies and read the whole process. So that's why simplifying also your portfolio is very important, because when you present something, you only have something like 10 minutes for each project, each case study. So you have to be really quick. You have to tell a story, of course, because people love stories. So tell a story, like why did you, what was the situation, for example, what made you, conduct this research, and then show the solution of the problem, that you went through. So it's like a journey. You tell them your journey, but don't make it too long, because people nowadays don't want long stories.
Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned this. I think, and this is my assumption, right? I think at different stages of your career, you also prepare your portfolio or your case studies for different people. If you're looking for a job, you need to know your audience. If you're writing to a recruiter, like you mentioned, focus on what they will probably want or what will stand you apart. But if you're focusing, for example, like you are now, and you might be looking for clients, that might be a totally different presenting that same project. Have you encountered something like this in your experience?
Yeah, let's say that portfolios from new designers and experienced designers are totally different. Some experienced designers don't even have a portfolio because they don't have any more time to build one. And especially the projects sometimes are not even visual anymore. So it's more like how to, build a design system to find a solution to that problem, and you will work with other designers that will design, that let's say interface, so it depends in what level you are and where you work at. But as a freelancer, you do everything by yourself, so you can showcase basically how you actually help that business, like what was the goal of the business and how you help that business to reach that goal. And the good thing is that it's actually very positive to show also some failures, like what went wrong in that process, because it cannot be everything fine, you know. We need to show also people that you will have some, you know, periods in your project that maybe you will not see that growth instantly, but it will take that time and we will reach that goal, but we need to test it. So you have to show also the failures like of the project that you went through. Because we see a lot of, you know, happy moments, happy portfolios, happy projects, and yeah, but the real world is not like this.
Yeah, but that makes it then valuable if it's not just pretty, but if it reaches goals, like you mentioned before with the video. Well, you tested it, and then you had you could substantiate your decision based on the data, and then you added the short proposition, and it performed better. And I think that's a lot what we love to talk, Chris, about this return on investment, or maybe even return on design.
Yeah.
That basically the clients have in mind, okay, this I invest or I'm considering hiring a designer. What do I get from him or her? And I think that is wonderful that you are educating to speak this design language and business language that it's almost bilingual.
Yeah, communication is very important, especially in design. We are visual communicators, right? Because we design something that everybody can see. But what people don't see is the process behind that communication that we built. And everyone is able to judge what they see, but they cannot judge, you know, the process. And that is the point when you show them the process, when you show them how you reach that goal and how you can perform better analysis and how you can perform better design, they will trust you more because they will see how you work and how you can help them actually.
Yeah, and you mentioned what you guys were just mentioning also, it's about making it human. We're all humans. We talked about failures now. I think that's a very interesting thing to add in. There's no perfect portfolio. No one was born a perfect designer. You went through failures, and I think showing that's also talked about it, the iterative process of learning on and adapting. That's what we do with ourselves and with our careers. And I want to add on to that, we're going through this change from customer centricity to relationship centricity, or this era of relationship centricity. And that makes everything we just mentioned, you know, making clients trust you, return on design, all this even more valuable. It's about building relationships. And like you mentioned, if you want to build a relationship with your client, they need to feel they're talking to another human being and not a perfect robot. Because if not, they can use any AI software, make this squarey looking logo, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why it's very important to implement the good design, let's say, in your product, because the first relation that the client will have is maybe with your website or even with your social media. You know, sometimes people discover you through social media. They don't even know about your website. So you have to be, let's say, careful about how you want to communicate and what you want to communicate people, because colors, you know, how you, also the tone of voice that you use, it describes you as a brand, as a personality, right? And people connect with personalities. So you need to understand first what you want to communicate to people and how you want to communicate it. And this is the first step. And this is where you actually start building your brand.
So you were talking about the customer journey, and before we talked also about the sales funnel. So that is, of course, a very business term and with all the different phases. But how would you, in your simple language, for maybe a younger designer who has never heard about, well, sales funnel, why should I care? How would you describe that in a few sentences?
Okay, so basically the sales funnel is the marketing part. You know, the marketing is whatever the product shows and is the first, let's say, step of advertising, okay, is how a product advertises itself. So it can be on social media, for example, or it can be a landing page, or it can be a website. That can be also a great way of start on how people discover you. And this is the first phase on how people discover you. And you can work on that phase as well, and which is called acquisition. So how how do we show people that we are here, that we are actually selling something? Then there is, let's say, the product and the development part, which is the activation. So how do we make them customers? How do we make them sign up to our application or our Instagram page, for example? How will they start following us, right? For example, if you have an Instagram business, and let's say an important part is the retention. So how can we make them stay? Like, we don't want, once we got them, we don't want them, you know, to leave our website or our Instagram page. So what can we do to improve that part? And how can we make money? You know, how can we sell their product then to them, which is called revenue, and is the last part of the funnel. So basically, there are all these steps. You can specialize in one of them, or you can do all of them. So it depends a little bit where you work. If it's like a big company, you can work on the marketing, let's say, department, or the product department.
So that is also a potential way to specialize, or to consider about specialization, or rather to say, I want to serve clients on all these different phases and help them.
Yeah, it depends from your experience. For example, if you feel more comfortable in the acquisition part, then you should love marketing. You should love advertising. You should understand how to engage people, right, to your let's say product or website or Instagram page. But if you are more into the product, like how to optimize the product to, let's say, activate new clients, retain the, let's say, actual clients, and make them buy your product, then that, let's say, part of the funnel is more for you. So it depends what you like more to do. I don't know if it's clear.
Well, to me, it's very clear. Chris, do you have a follow-up question?
Well, I was thinking about a question. You just mentioned the funnel, the journey, and you feel, it sounds like you have a skill set that it mixes, you know, between business and design. What would you say is your superpower as a designer?
So my superpower as designer, I think it's simplifying concepts. So I feel that I can fit in all the stages, because when you have to simplify, for example, a post for marketing, I feel comfortable doing it. When you have to simplify maybe an interaction on the product, I feel comfortable doing it. So I feel that my superpower is simplifying interactions and maybe make people engage more with your product.
I like that. And what do you say, because you're a solopreneur, right? So you work mostly on your own. Do you sometimes engage also with partners or other designers, maybe for bigger projects? Like, have you ever had that where a project is so big, you're like, I can't tackle this alone, I need someone to help out?
Yeah, so I've in this last period, I've worked mostly with startups. So I was the only designer in the company, and I was doing pretty much a lot of things, but I was having always someone to help me with data. So a data analyst that was helping with me, you know, to gather the numbers and try to translate them together and see how to implement new design decisions based on that data that he was trying to, you know, collect and show me. So yeah, I was having this, and a copywriter. I think it's very important. I mean, we designers, we can write some copy. I mean, if you are comfortable writing copy, that's fine. I'm good on writing micro copy, so just short sentences, because I'm not good at writing long, you know, blog posts. But yeah, if you have a copywriter that can help you, that would be fantastic.
That's awesome. I think many times clients think, and that's where my question was actually coming from. I think many times clients think you're some kind of superhero as a designer, that you're going to come and you're going to develop it, you're going to write it, you're going to pick perfect images, you're going to do everything. And this happens, you sometimes do have to collaborate with other disciplines, especially if your client is from a more complex industry, engineering or something. We're not engineers. We don't know enough about that. So would you say, or would you agree that it's also important to involve your client in this process? Or how do you usually manage, how much do you involve the client in the design decisions that you take?
I always, let's say, invite the client to see the process. Actually, lately I started to do some workshops so they can understand where my design decisions come from. So that is really important because you educate them, you show them what the process is. Of course, it has to be short because they don't have much time, but you show them basically how to prioritize some let's say, elements that we want to implement in a website or application. And then we decide together what is most important to implement now, because they want everything right now, and the growth should be instant, you know, everything now. But it's not possible, because if you implement everything now, then you will not understand what you're doing wrong and if what you are building is the right thing. So this is why what I always say them is to build an MVP. So build one feature at a time. What is most important for you right now? Do you want to sell? Then just put a button, sell, right? Don't put a lot of elements in your website because you will confuse people and you will not sell your product. So sometimes we want to add more, but instead of adding more, I start slowly, you know, step by step, adding things, you know, by testing if what we implemented before is right.
Yeah.
I think you even make it sometimes for companies that probably want to say too much. As an outsider, you're the one coming in. So what is the single main key message that you want to tell?
Yes.
That is very powerful, that you always, I hear it mentioning a lot of times, Redona, that you focus on simplicity and story, the connection, but always keeping in mind the simplicity.
Yeah, because there are a lot of information out there right now. So we have to focus on the main thing that we want to communicate people. If I put you in a place where you have a lot of different things, you don't know where to start from. You don't know even what to choose. Even though you want everything, you will have, it's called paralysis analysis, I believe. It's called like, it's something psychologically, like you cannot choose because there are a lot of things in front of you. So you have to show people one thing at a time, because that is where you will think about, okay, is this important for me? Do I want to buy this? Yes or not? And this is where the decision comes from the client or the customer.
Yeah.
If not, they will just leave your website, and that is worse when they leave your website because then they will not purchase your product.
Yeah, that means it was not clear enough. The proposition.
Exactly.
Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
That we mentioned in a previous call, a previous innovation talk with Claudia, this concept called shiny object syndrome, which is exactly this. A client, when they want to build something that might be super complex, everything is like, oh, let's build this. Oh, let's have a checkout box. Oh, let's have a button here. Let's have. And my follow-up question to that was, how do you manage expectations with a client? Because sometimes they come with an expectations that are so high that it's impossible, you know, to meet them. They're unmeetable expectations.
Yeah, it's difficult sometimes because, of course, they always want to, as I said before, build everything right now. And I had an experience with, this was, I mean, I didn't work with them because they asked me they want me as a, let's say, consultant, but also as a user interface designer. So they told me, we did all our research, we did everything, so we want you to build the visual design of the website, and we want this. And I was like, no. Yeah, you have to say no, because otherwise you will be only an executor, right? And if you don't want to be an executor, you should actually ask questions. So I asked them, what type of research did you conduct? Like, what was your research? And they told me, yeah, we did some buyer personas. And I was like, yeah, but that is not the same thing when you build a design, you know? So maybe we should conduct some more research to understand what to build. Yeah, but we want only the aesthetics. And I told them, okay, if you want to work with me only for the aesthetics, I can do that, no problem. But I will not, let's say, give you my word that, yeah, I will not guarantee that the product will work. Because we didn't conduct a proper research. We are just building something out of the blue, you know. And sometimes they, you know, of course it's difficult because they know they are the experts of their product, and sometimes, you know, they are right because they have experience in some kind of, you know, let's say areas. For example, in healthcare, I don't have experience, so maybe they are right because they have customers. So it's like, you know, dancing with the client. So you need to understand, you know, what they are actually asking you and what you can give them. And if you don't accept, you know, what they're asking you to do, then it's better to say, it was, I mean, great meeting you, but no, thank you.
Yeah, so that fits very well to a question we received yesterday on our story from Alejandra. If you're watching, good afternoon to you, Alejandra. She's a designer based in the Netherlands, and she asked, yeah, how can you actually find out if you're a good match with a client? And you were already partly saying that you show the process, you ask the questions, why do you need that? Do you have maybe another tip how to onboard, or maybe how to even filter first the right clients? And how to onboard them into a very successful collaboration?
Yeah, so as I said before, the first thing to understand is their business goal without trying to sell them, let's say, a digital product. Like when they come to you and say, we need an application, you need to ask them why you need an application. So what is the purpose of your product that you need an application? And maybe they don't need an application. Maybe they realize with you that maybe they just need an Instagram page, for example, because they need to be seen by people. And so they spend less money. So you can tell them, let's start with this type of process. So maybe we can start from the activation. So a little bit marketing, you know, try to show people who you are first, build a community or build someone that knows your product, and then invest in something more, you know, stable, something more expensive, which is an application. It takes time, it takes a lot of effort and, you know, engineering and designing. So test with small things first, and then we can go maybe through an application if that is needed, because sometimes it's not even needed. So you have to be a consultant for them. You have to show them that they can have different options, and you should always be there to save money for them, you know. So show them the easiest and the cheapest way for them to reach their goal.
And how would you say, because you just mentioned, I think this is also important, also for other designers that are seeing, it's very important to be able to say no and be able to choose what projects. I think obviously at the beginning of your career, experiment as much as you can, but when you get to a certain maturity in your career, being able to say no to projects. How do you reject the project? Like if a client comes up to you and it's this big juicy business and you're like, oh, this is interesting, but there is no match, like Claudia just said. How do you reject them? What do you say? Do you just say bye-bye, or do you ghost them? Obviously not ghost.
No, I sent them an email that it was nice meeting them, but at this time our, let's say, way of, like what we are looking for, like as co-workers, because we work together. I'm not working for you and you are not working for me. So we are helping each other. I'm helping you to grow your business. They don't match. I mean, our goals don't match in this moment. So it was nice meeting you, and I hope you can find someone else. Maybe sometimes I send them some contacts that might be like interesting profiles for them. I send them other designers' contact, and I help them out and tell them, maybe you can reach this person and maybe they will be available for what you're searching for. So always be positive, even though they are not the best clients that you have worked, or the best clients that, let's say, have communicated with you. So always try to be positive with them.
And what would you say, now following up exactly on that, what would be for you a dream client? What's like your ideal client? Maybe you've already worked with them, maybe you haven't. What's your, what industry or what type of product?
Yes. I really would love to work with IDEO. IDEO is, I mean, we all know they are the founders of design thinking, and I love how they use design to help humanity. And this is something that I really love, that type of, you know, thinking of, they're doing business as well. And so it's like by helping other human beings, And this is how my journey started here on Instagram, actually, like helping other people to learn about some concepts that maybe they don't know, and maybe they can help their life or their business, to grow. And yeah, that will be my ideal client. I really would love to work for, I mean, I would even leave my job as a freelancer and go and work for them, because that is like a really my dream job.
That's awesome. That's very awesome.
Yeah. I hope they are here, but they are not here in this live listening.
Here.
And would you be more, let's say they would ask you, and Redona, would you like to join us as a team, as a freelancer or employee, or would you rather be interested if they say, hey, we want to set up maybe the 2.0 version of their ideal use or their educational platform?
Well, that's interesting because, of course, I've worked for companies as a employee, and now I'm doing some freelance work, and I love both. Of course, there are different ways of working. When you are a freelancer, you have more responsibility, and you need to be careful with the time that you spend on your project and how you communicate your design decisions with the client, and how you communicate with the client. Instead of working in a company is different, because you will have maybe a manager, or you will be the manager, and you have different let's say situations in a company. It's maybe more, let's say, relaxed, because that is your job, you will do that thing, and maybe someone else will talk with the client, and you will receive maybe just the design brief. So it depends. I don't know. At the moment, I don't know how to answer this question.
Okay, so let's see. But for sure, we all remember that Ideal you would love to collaborate with them.
Yes,
one day in the future.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, following up on that, I think that's a very interesting question you asked, Claudia. That takes me to, do you usually work with final clients, or have you also had the experience where you've worked maybe through an agency, through another company, or some in between? How do you those layers? Because at least from my experience, dealing with a direct client is much easier to show them the value of the design. But when there's someone in the middle, that could be even a project manager, how do you cut through all that static?
Yeah, so when I was working in an agency, we had a lot of clients, and I was not talking with the client, so I was only doing the design. And the person that was talking with the clients was sometimes the project manager and sometimes the sales. And we all know that, I mean, salespeople don't really understand how design is made, so they're trying to sell the product, right? And they don't do it in the right way, like telling how the process is. So sometimes it was very difficult for me to communicate with the team, but I discovered that I had to educate the people that were going out and talking with the client. So I had to tell them what I was doing, how I was doing it, and the reason why we implemented those things. So they were ready to explain to the client why we did that, right? Instead of saying, okay, this is the design, tell me what you think. So yeah, you have to educate your co-workers if you are not the one talking with the client.
That's very useful. Yeah, Claudia, go ahead.
Yeah, and that again is the importance to filter quite early on, and that again is important to have a clear positioning on who you are and for which market you serve. And how you do that. So that reminds me of the golden circle from Simon Sinek, which is also about simplicity. Very simple, why, how, and what. And I would also add the who, because the target is super important. I saw in the comments two designers asked, maybe Redona, do you have a tip how for young designers, how could they land their first job? Do you have some, maybe from your own experience, do you have some tips when you're more at the beginning of your career, maybe just graduated and you don't have this shiny portfolio, you don't have this deep analytical understanding? How could junior designers land their first job?
Yeah. So first of all, for example, when I first started, I wanted to become an editorial designer. So I wanted to design book covers. I don't know why I had this passion about, designing book covers. But then I discovered that there was no market at that time. And especially, I also understood that it was not so creative work because I was not the one that was going to design the cover, but it was the creative director working with the art director. So I was the one, just implementing the text in the book. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that job. It's not creative enough for me. So I started to send a lot of CVs, digital agencies, and and one of these agencies hired me as a junior designer to help the senior designer in a web agency. So I started designing websites in this agency, but I didn't know anything about websites. I didn't even know how to design them. So I was actually searching what I liked. Like, I was not sure about what I wanted to do as a designer. So if you, as a young designer, let's say that is coming out from, university or school, and you know what you want to do, I will highly suggest you to apply to that type of agency or company that you want to work for. If you don't know, then I would suggest you to try a little bit and see what fits best for you. So try maybe to send some, CVs or your portfolio that you did maybe in school. And if you don't have a portfolio, go and search. Like you can actually, even if you don't know how to conduct research, you can go on a product, for example, how it's called, where people leave the comments. I'm sorry, I don't remember anymore.
Like review?
Review, yes. Some people review the products online, right? And you can see a lot of people mentioning what is going wrong with that product. So you have actually free research there. Go and see what is wrong with that product and try to find maybe a solution to what people are complaining about, and show to the company that you want to apply for, what you did and where your research comes from. This is just, a little process that can help maybe someone that doesn't have experience, but it's just a start.
You take basically a real life product and real life customer feedback from review pages, and then you translate that into how can design improve that, and maybe even post it on social media, and then maybe even tag the company or ask other designers for their feedback and critics. So to immediately apply in real life.
Yeah, you can do that from the product review, for example, Google Play or Apple Store, or you can go through their social media. A lot of people comment on the social media of the product, so you can go and do this say research and see what people are saying about that product, if people are happy or not. If they are not happy, and if there's like a feature of that product that maybe has a potential to be improved, then you can be the one, that can apply it. And because maybe the company doesn't prioritize that as a feature to implement or to, make it work at the moment. So you can actually show them your process, even if you don't have, budget to conduct research.
Yeah. And I would add, I had a conversation with much junior designer a couple days ago, and she was working on a case study, and she was afraid of putting it out on her website or on her portfolio. She's like, what if someone's going to copy me? What if this idea is so? And what I would add to this is, don't be afraid to put it into the wild. Just show it, get feedback, learn from it. You'll probably look at that same project 2 years from now, 3 years from now, and go like, what was I doing back then? So I think the sooner, the same as in any design process, the sooner you learn, the sooner you get feedback and you iterate on it, the more value you're going to start creating as a designer.
Absolutely. I did something similar for Instagram, but for me it was just, let's say I was enjoying doing it. There was a problem with the auto captions of the Instagram stories. So that you can implement auto captions on your story, so people can read it instead of, turning on the volume, because most of the times we watch stories without audio. So that's why Instagram implemented this auto captions. But the problem was that once I started to implement these auto captions, I saw people, skipping my stories, and my stories didn't have a lot of views. So what I did, I asked people, I actually was talking with an ex-colleague of mine, and she's also here on Instagram, and we were questioning the auto caption of Instagram. So we did, I did, since I have a bigger audience, I did a small, let's say, pool asking people if they prefer, auto captions, or sometimes people, they just write what they're saying, in as let's say, as a sticker, and they put it there. So you can, let's say, stop the story and read the whole, let's say, thing that you are telling people. And they actually prefer people writing down everything, because they said that auto captions are slow. They don't have time to wait, the text appear, and they want, to read everything fast. So that was an opportunity for me to work on that. So I started to design a solution, for this problem. Since it was also my assumption, I had an assumption about, this is not working. So I have to ask other people if this is their problem as well. So I discovered the problem, but I don't know if Instagram is, interested, on changing this. And I don't know if this is also a priority for this type of product. But yeah, you can find small problems in all the products that we are using, because we are all users of digital products nowadays. And if you see something that is not working, go and investigate if that is just your problem, or if it's a common problem. And if it's a common problem, then you can find a solution for that.
Yeah, and you mentioned this earlier. As a designer, validate these assumptions, these hypotheses. If you have a hypothesis that a certain button or a certain feature doesn't work, test it. Ask people. See if you're the only one and it's the way you interact with it, or try to understand if it's a niche, if it's a certain age group, if it's what's happening. And I just
Absolutely.
saw a question that just went by, which was, if someone is starting off building their portfolio, do they need a website for their portfolio, or would a PDF work? What would you recommend for a starting designer for their first portfolio?
You don't necessarily need a website. For example, I'm still trying to implement my new work in my portfolio, because I don't have now a portfolio. That's actually weird, but because I've worked on so different type of clients and different projects, that I'm trying to focus on what industry to show that I'm working and where I want to specialize. And I'm not sure at the moment. So I'm experimenting, and I'm trying to understand how to do it. But what helped me was my online presence. So building my personal brand here on Instagram helped me a lot to stand out from the crowd. So instead of being a designer in the crowd, let's say, of millions of designers, I'm standing a little bit out from the crowd right now, because I have an online presence. And Instagram can be your portfolio as well. You can show your work. You can put some mini case studies if the other client maybe don't give you the opportunity to show, because you have signed an NDA, and then you can show the project that you are working on. And there is Behance, so you don't have to, build a website, but you can actually put your work there, or Dribble for designers. I would say that if you are a digital designer, I would recommend you to do something, that fits with the digital world instead of building a PDF. I know that when a recruiter sees a PDF, it's fine, but when you interact with designers, they will ask you, where is your maybe website, or I don't know. It depends from the designer, but sometimes PDFs are not seen very well for designers. So maybe you can just put your work on Behance, where a lot of designers are showcasing their work, or Dribble, or Instagram, or Facebook, whatever you want. You can build it everywhere.
And remembering from what you said before, simplicity, keep it short. Like, be very specific in how you helped this client or product service grow, what it was the main change you did. So I would even like to add, to challenge, how can, in one sentence only, describe the impact or the business growth you did. And then there are sometimes these templates to just say, okay, what was my contribution, what was the starting point. So to keep it really short, and show the process, right? Because you mentioned that before, Redona, show the process of your work, how you validate, how you research.
Yeah, and it goes back to also know your audience. Who are you creating that portfolio to? And I wanted to add to what you just mentioned, that you said it between lines, but to make it clear for someone that's listening, focus, because I think it's very easy to get overwhelmed by, I need to build a website, oh, my CV, oh, I need to do this project, oh, and I'm also working, oh, and a new client. And focus your efforts. Start with something. If it's social media, do that. If it's LinkedIn, not Instagram, do that. If it's a website, but do one thing. Try to prioritize and try to steer clear from shiny object syndrome, because it's very easy to be all over the place. And I've seen it so many times with junior designers that they have trouble moving forward, in the sense that they're working on 5 different things at the same time, but they don't have one thing to show. So focus. I think that's a key word I would also add. I don't know.
Absolutely. You need to treat yourself as a product. Okay, so what's the goal of the product at the moment?
One goal only.
So what's the goal? Try to understand what your goal is and try to reach that goal first. And once you reach that goal, go to the other one. So for me right now is, maybe it's not my portfolio at the moment, because I still can get clients without a portfolio. So my goal right now is not to work on my portfolio, but maybe work on how to reach more clients. And maybe another person's goal is how to build a portfolio, right? So if that is your goal, I will say don't focus on how to build a portfolio, but focus on how to create a case study that you will implement in your portfolio. Because a portfolio, you can build it in one day. It doesn't matter. Like it can be just with 1 color or 2 colors. It has to showcase your work. A portfolio is not a work itself. It showcases your work. And you should focus on how to, let's say, feel that portfolio, right? So how can you reach that goal of feeling the portfolio? It's like the same thing when a client tells you that I need a website. Maybe you don't need a website. Or for a designer, maybe you don't need a portfolio. You need a case study to work on. You need a project to work on. So focus on that.
Yeah. What would you tell yourself? And that goes back, we're talking about design and business, right? Mm-hmm. So if you treat yourself as a product and as a business, then your time is your money. So I mentioned this earlier, instead of return on investment, your return on design. You don't have an infinite amount of time. So make sure that the time that you are putting towards your product, yourself, is as valuable as it can be. If you feel you're stuck, that's your blocker. Try to unblock that. Try to find someone. And that's also how Claudia and I started talking. We were our accountability partners. We would share ideas, and that would help us think about new things to do.
Absolutely.
But I'm also
we will continue, because this is the 17th talk and we are already planning the other talks. So for all of you, join us also next time when we talk about other topics, always centered around this design, business, innovation, because that are our passion topics. And that leads us back to thanking all of you for being here, and especially, of course, Redona, joining us from the States and sharing her experience. And wow, it's really impressive, the work you do, the educational work, and that you're here to simplify design and always focus on the value and the growth potential of design. So that's something I remember, that it's much more the aesthetics, it's always the analytical together with the beautiful product or service. So that being said, thank you very much, Redona, for being here. Thank you all for joining. And I would say let's catch up very soon, and let's follow each other on Instagram and other platforms. And for you,
so much for
inviting me.
Thank you, and have a good evening to you.
Yeah, I think we have several times though. So thank you all for joining. I think this might be our last, I don't remember the calendar dates. This is our last Innovation Talk of the year. So stay in touch, follow our accounts. That will definitely connect again beginning in January. And Redona, thank you for joining us. This has been super valuable, and let's do this again.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You guys are amazing, and you are doing a great job. Of course, educating other people on how to, consider design and business together, and how these two disciplines can work very well together. So thank you so much for spreading the voice.
Well, we are in this together. We all have a similar mission. So thank you for being here and for this very engaging talk. Have a good day and have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah. Thank you.
The audience, thank
Bye-bye.
you. Well, see you guys soon.
Bye-bye.